Let us pray. We, thine unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our considerations. Amen.
Introduction of visitors.
Mr. Transportation and Utilities.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure today to introduce two fine gentlemen from Kiev, Ukraine, the co-pilot and the navigator of the Ukrainian Antonov 225 Cossack that, when loaded, will weigh 600 metric tons. They are accompanied by a gentleman from Edmonton, and I'd like to have them introduced. Nikolai Bogulya is the co-pilot on that aircraft, and Leonid Vok is the navigator. They are accompanied by Bill Beta, who is their host from Edmonton. And I would ask them to stand. Before I do that, Mr. Speaker, I would also like to mention they were here for the air show on the weekend, plus they will be going home tomorrow with the airlift, the humanitarian airlift that is mainly medical supplies for the hospitals in Ukraine and for the children of the Chernobyl disaster. I'd like them to rise and receive the warm welcome of this assembly.
Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports.
Honorable the Premier.
Speaker, I'd like to table today 4 copies of the communiques from the Western Premiers Conference, which concluded on Friday. It was held in 108 Mile Ranch and Vancouver in the province of British Columbia on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Introduction of special guests.
Minister of Economic Development and Trade.
It's my pleasure, sir, to introduce to you and to members of the Legislative Assembly visitors that we do have from the Ukraine also. Earlier we had discussions as to how we can create closer ties, and let me begin by introducing 2 members of Parliament, the Honourable Bohdan Horin, Member of Parliament, the Honourable Valery Izmailkov, Member of Parliament, and they are joined by Mr. Boris Boslevsky, Chief Counselor, the Department of International Relations, and accompanying them is the Honourable Alex Kindy, Member of Parliament for Calgary Northwest, and his assistant Lynn Pitt. I would ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of the Legislative Assembly.
Minister of Health, followed by the Minister of Culture and Multiculturalism.
Mr. Speaker, Alberta is fortunate indeed to have some of the finest health administrators in Canada. And today, seated in the members' gallery is one such administrator, Dr. Jean-Michel Turc. Dr. Turc is here with his parents, Paul and Jacqueline Turc, who are visiting us from IER France. I would like to ask Mr. and Mrs. Turc and their son, Jean-Michel, to rise and receive a very warm welcome from this assembly.
Minister of Culture, Multiculturalism.
The Legislative Assembly is replete with visitors this afternoon, including 27 from the constituency of Edmonton Park Allen, specifically Lendrum School. They are in both the members and public galleries. There are 22 students and 5 adults, including 3 teachers, Mrs. Anderson, Mrs. Scott, and Mrs. Fraser, and a couple of parents, Mrs. Bulett and Mrs. Cotter, and I would ask them to rise in both galleries and receive the traditional warm welcome of the House.
Minister of Public Works, Supply and Services, followed by Edmonton Jasper Place.
Mr. Speaker, in the members' gallery today are 41 visitors from Cherry Hill School, The young students are accompanied by two teachers, Ms. G. McCallchuk and Ms. A. Pollock, as well as a number of parents, Mrs. Cindy Dickinson, Mrs. Terry Cole, Mr. L. Soldas, Mrs. M. Quinlan, and Mrs. D. Proud. I'd ask our visitors to kindly stand and receive the warm welcome of my colleagues in the Assembly.
Edmonton Jasper Place. It's my pleasure to introduce two classes from Holy Cross School and constituency of Edmonton Jasper Place. They are unique in that they include the eldest daughter of the MLA. Their teachers are Mrs. Manuela Ferrante and Miss Marlena Tucci. They're in both galleries. I wonder if they would rise and please receive the welcome of the Assembly.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the final Boundaries Commission report, we know, came down on Friday. But, Mr. Speaker, because of this government's partisan interference in the drafting of the legislation, it made the Commission's task... Well, they may go, oh, or not. That's what they say in it, Mr. Speaker. That's right. It made the Commission's task impossible. We said that when we debated it here, Mr. Speaker. Right. Even the Conservative members on the Commission couldn't come up with a solution within this government's rules. Mr. Speaker, as a result, we have an absolute mess, Mr. Speaker, a hung boundary commission with 5 different reports. That's the reality, Mr. Speaker. To the Attorney General, my question is simply this. What is the government going to do about boundary redistribution now that the process it created has fallen apart?
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, first to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, I certainly can't agree with him on his allegations regarding the legislation, but we do have a problem, and it's obvious by the reports that have been filed with the Legislative Assembly. Shortly, I will ask the Government House Leader to contact the House leaders of the other parties to see about a select committee which might deal with this report and make recommendations to us this year. We have that option, or we can go into the election with the existing boundaries. But I think, Mr. Speaker, if we work together as parties here in this legislature, and I'm pleased that we have Hansard hearings, reports of the hearings, that perhaps we can put together a recommendation to the House that we could deal with before the end of the year.
Speaker, I mean, we've dithered away 3 years and almost $2 million in taxpayers' money, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, the problem was enabling legislation and the rules that were set out. That's why we're having the problem, Mr. Speaker. And it seems to me, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, then, if he's answering on this, is the only fair thing now to do is to introduce legislation that will allow Electoral Boundaries Commission to do its work properly. My question to the Premier is the government now prepared to take this simple measure, Mr. Speaker?
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, I question the honourable member's words with regards to the legislation. You recall the legislation was referred to Alberta's highest court, and they, in their answer, said yes, this legislation was correct and fair. So, Mr. Speaker, what I would say to the honourable Leader of the Opposition is, rather than immediately changing the legislation, it would seem to me to be wise if we would have a select committee take the report, make recommendations to us, which may involve changing the legislation. Or they may, in fact, suggest to us that we continue on with the existing boundaries. But I think it would be helpful if all parties participated in dealing with the matter.
This is purely and simply a delaying tactic to get us through the next election, which this government wanted on the old boundaries all the time, Mr. Speaker. That's why we have this problem that we have, Mr. Speaker. There's a simple thing, Mr. Speaker. The 1991 census is now out, Mr. Speaker. Up-to-date census figures. My question to the Premier is simply this. Rather than delay any further, let's do the correct and proper thing. Will the government now use the 1991 census figures and establish a new commission to draw the boundaries as quickly and as fairly as possible, and do that right now instead of delaying, Mr. Speaker?
Here.
The honourable leader of the opposition could have been listening to my answer, Mr. Speaker. I suggested that we immediately put together a select committee and that they recommend to us changes which we would deal with before the end of the year. I don't see anything delaying tactics in that. As a matter of fact, I think the select committee could, in fact, look at the 1991 census figures, and if they are out, they perhaps will have that information to help us as well.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, my second question goes to the Minister of Research, Technology, Research and Telecommunications. As the Minister is well aware, stories continue to swirl around about the future of Novotel, that great bargain that we have for the taxpayers, Mr. Speaker. And the latest report suggests that Novotel will be split between Northern Telecom and a Hong Kong-based company, Mr. Speaker. Meanwhile, the government refuses to give us public knowledge here, continues to plot the future of Novotel behind closed doors without any information for the taxpayers who have funded this fiasco, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Minister is simply this. Will the Minister finally let this legislature and the people of Alberta know what is going on? Has a deal been struck to sell Novotel?
Find out.
Well, Mr. Speaker, going back a year or so ago when the government of Alberta made a very important decision to take back Novotel in order to preserve the integrity of the teleshare offering. At that point in time, the Premier said publicly that the management committee that was put in place would re-examine that company, would refocus it, restructure it in such a way as to either make it go in the business world in accordance with proper business practices and its objectives, or alternatively, it would be either sold or shut down. Since that time, the management committee has been working diligently, has been pursuing the matter of opportunities that may exist in order to preserve the technology, preserve the jobs, and in order to continue Novotel as part of Alberta. Those negotiations have led to widespread speculation, as the Honourable Leader indicates. I don't think that speculation is healthy for the employees and their families and the customers and the suppliers, but nevertheless that speculation does exist, and at such time as an announcement with respect to Novotel is to take place, we will make that announcement.
Sure. It's taxpayers' money, sure, integrity for the shareholders, but at the expense of all taxpayers. That's what's happening, Mr. Speaker. And surely the taxpayers have a right to know, Mr. Speaker. But let's just look at the accounts show Novotel had an accumulated deficit of $278 million at the end of 1990, far more than this government has ever let on. And, Mr. Speaker, we still have not received a financial report from last year, Mr. Speaker. And instead of hiding, Mr. Speaker, will the minister now tell us how many millions of dollars the taxpayers have lost with this white elephant?
Let's find out.
Mr. Speaker, nobody is hiding. The information with respect to 1990-91 operations were made public. The Honourable Leader knows that. He knows all the facts with respect to those losses that occurred in that year and the once-only write-offs and so on. And the information for the past fiscal year is being audited by the Auditor General, and at such time as we receive those, then they'll be tabled in the House in the usual fashion.
Mr. Speaker. We're almost into June. We haven't got last year's report. And of course, is when it's less embarrassing for the government, Mr. Speaker. That's what they mean by that. But, Mr. Speaker, my last question is simply this. Will the minister now tell us, because there's obviously negotiations going on, whether Novotel's debt will be sold with the company, or once again will the taxpayers be left holding the bag,
Good
Mr.
question.
Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, As I've indicated, discussions and negotiations have been going on for some time, and at such time as there is an announcement to be made, then we'll make that announcement.
Edmonton Glengarry on behalf of the Liberal Party.
Mr. Speaker, opposition members made numerous attempts through amendments and much debate to change the government's position, its bill on electoral boundary change, but to no avail. And because the government wouldn't change, and because the government bullied through its position, we're suffering the consequences, total chaos. I like the Premier's suggestion, and that is to bring House leaders together. I wonder if the Premier would go a step further and agree to a very quick meeting of the Leader of the Opposition, myself, the head of the Chief Electoral Officer, and the Chairman of the Commission to determine exactly what the legislative timetable should be and a Commission timetable should be.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I will consider the honourable member's request, but my suggestion is that the House leaders meet to look at the feasibility of putting together a select committee of this Assembly and to then deal with this report. Now, they could meet with the people that they would want to meet with, but my position would be, Mr. Speaker, that we get them meeting as soon as possible so that we can deal with this matter before the end of the year. It presumably would mean a fall session this year, but that's something that is always a potential for this Assembly. And I think if we had the parties come together and work together, I think they could solve the problem.
Mr. Speaker, it didn't work. The previous position taken by the Select Committee and the government members of that Select Committee was to bully through a position. And I think that we've got to get over that and through that and accept a position that allows for depoliticizing of the issue and for making it work quickly. I assume that the Premier has talked to the Chairman of the Commission. I wonder if the Premier can advise this Assembly whether in that and through those discussions the Premier has learned that that same Commission is able to carry on and thus save some money and expedite things in terms of time.
Mr. Speaker, I'll ask the Attorney General to talk with the Chairman of the Commission. I have not had contact with the Chairman, and Mr. Speaker, it may be that the Attorney General could add to my comments right now.
Advise the House that the Chairman has gone on holidays and will be away for a period of 2 or 3 weeks. When he's back, I'll definitely contact him.
Speaker, just so that the Honourable Minister is aware, the Chairman of that Commission was in his office today because one of our caucus members spoke to the Chairman. This is indicative of the way the government is treating this matter. It's serious. Time is of the essence, and the government doesn't seem to be concerned with this. Mr. Premier, my last question is this. I would like some sense of timetable from the Premier when this Select Committee is going to be finished, when this matter is going to be concluded in terms of legislative work and in terms of Commission work. Will the Premier give us that timetable?
First of all, Mr. Speaker, I'll just say to the honourable members that the government has treated this matter very seriously. We have had a Select Committee that talked to the people of Alberta. We had legislation debated through this Assembly. We then had a Electoral Boundaries Commission come up with an interim report, then hold hearings, and then a final report. So certainly we've been dealing with the matter seriously. I would like to see a Select Committee get together and start work immediately so that this matter would be concluded before the end of this calendar year.
Member for Calgary-Fish Creek, followed by Edmonton Avonmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With all of the western provinces struggling to match revenues with ongoing demands for capital and operating expenditures, it would appear that the western premiers don't have much maneuvering room to deal separately or jointly with our economic problems.
My question this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, is to the Premier, and it has to do with the recently concluded Western Premiers Conference. In view of these fiscal constraints, were the Western Premiers able to develop any meaningful initiatives to deal with our current economic challenges?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the meeting was a very good meeting. It was made up of the 4 premiers of the Western provinces, as well as the leaders from the territorial governments, that is from the Yukon and the Northwest Territories. And I was pleased that we were able to work together, issue some 9 communiques, and one that was of particular interest to Alberta, which we tabled a document involving improving fiscal and financial management, a document that balances responsibilities as a government between ourselves and the federal government with financial capabilities. That document was endorsed unanimously by the participants at the Western Premiers Conference and referred now to our treasurers or finance ministers, depending on the province, to work on that document in order that we may remove duplication and overlap between ourselves and the federal government and provide better government for the people of Alberta and Canada and more efficient government.
Mr. Speaker, constitutional stability is, of course, an important component in any plan to achieve regional or provincial economic priorities, especially where investment is concerned. Can the Premier advise the Assembly if the Western Premiers made any headway in reaching a consensus on any of the major constitutional issues now before us?
Yeah. We had a very good discussion on Constitution, Mr. Speaker. It wasn't officially on the agenda, but several of us felt that it is of sufficient importance, and of course it overhangs all economic decisions that can be made in our country right now, that we should talk about it, and we did for some period of time. What I was pleased with was that we were able to gather together the leaders behind Alberta's position that Western priorities in this Canada round of constitutional reform be treated on an equal basis with the priorities of Ontario and Quebec. I was pleased that the premiers together unanimously issued a very strong statement regarding raising Western priorities, Western needs for future constitutional reform to the level of the very real concerns of the province of Quebec. But nevertheless, this is not a Quebec round. This is a Canada round. We want to make sure that the views of Western Canada are taken as seriously as those of the province of Quebec. So that very strong statement, I believe, will give direction to the federal ministers and to all of the ministers who are participating in constitutional discussions this week. They will know that six leaders in Canada unanimously requested this raising of the level of attention to Western priorities.
One more, followed by Edmonton Goldbar.
Mr. Speaker, my questions are to the Minister responsible for Family and Social Services. In stating his department's policy to pursue maintenance enforcement payments from fathers, the Minister has failed to place priority on the safety of women and children. I spoke to a woman who is terrified that she will have to demand maintenance from a husband who has threatened to kill her and himself, and who will, in the face of paying maintenance, demand access to the children. Mr. Speaker, the risk and terror experienced by this woman is unacceptable. Will the Minister now commit that no woman who fears for the safety of herself and her children will be required to ask for or give details of maintenance orders?
Breda.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's always difficult to respond to specific cases when the member hasn't brought forward the specific case to my attention as it relates to this individual. If she has a woman in that situation, obviously I would share her concern and I would want to look into it. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to make it very clear that no, we will not allow any of our policies to compromise the danger or a situation that a mother might find herself in. But I want to make it very clear that if there are fathers that are out there and are responsible for children and are responsible for child support, we want to be able to pursue every avenue available to us. And we're going to continue to do that, Mr. Speaker. And we'll do it, Mr. Speaker, without putting mothers at risk.
Speaker, it's such a serious issue. The Advisory Council on Women's Issues raised it in their most recent report. And every week we hear reports of battered women being murdered. Battered women in shelters or hiding out from abusive husbands know that society, including the judicial system and police, have failed to guarantee the safety of themselves and their children. Social services failed them further by threatening to cut off or reduce their benefits if they fail to comply with their policies. I want a commitment from this minister to what steps he will take to ensure the safety and well-being of battered women and their children as a top priority not to be compromised.
Let's have an answer.
Mr. Speaker, I fully agree with the member opposite. We do everything that we can to protect mothers that find themselves in that very vulnerable position. The member knows full well that we perhaps, better than any other province, have done a good job of providing shelters and other services to women that find themselves in that particular situation. We're going to continue to do that, Mr. Speaker, and as I say, we will not allow our policies to compromise a mother's concern in that respect. But again, we do need to have the appropriate information, and we will treat it appropriately, Mr. Speaker.
Edmonton Goldbar.
Mr. Speaker, the cuts to the Phoenix program, one of the few counseling programs available for sex offenders, continue to have serious ramifications. Now, we learn that young people convicted of a sexual offense can no longer get treatment under the program. My questions are to the Solicitor General. Why has the minister declined or refused funding for the Phoenix program, especially when this particular treatment is ordered by the court?
Mr. Speaker, I accept the question, but in the Solicitor General Department, we deal with counseling and direction to offenders that have been committed to our correctional facilities or in the care of the Solicitor General. But there is other avenues in our society. Once they go out of the supervision of the Solicitor General's Department, they must then access the programs that are available through many other departments in this government. And so I would ask that this individual program and the direction for these, that the honourable member do some research on that and come up with the better specifics.
Mr. Speaker, one of the problems is the courts are still listing Phoenix as a condition of treatment or probation. Will the Solicitor General at least be in touch with the courts to let them know that this program is no longer offered for young people, and whatever programs he has that are available for young people convicted of sexual offense?
Mr. Speaker, I sure will.
Member for Lloydminster, followed by Edmonton Calder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in September of 1988, when the Agreement of Understanding was signed for the construction of the bi-provincial upgrader, all partners agreed that the financial investment would be shared according to the equity in the project. Now we find that Saskatchewan has said no to further dollars. My question is to the Minister of Energy. Have you been in contact with Saskatchewan regarding this most important matter?
Mr. Speaker, I do respect the honourable member's interest in this project. It has a substantial economic impact and social impact, Mr. Speaker, in his community. Mr. Speaker, I would be underestimating my concern if I said simply that I was disappointed with Saskatchewan's unwillingness to live up to their moral responsibility to continue the funding of the bi-provincial upgrader. Mr. Speaker, this project is in Saskatchewan. A lot of the economic benefit and years to the benefit of the residents of Saskatchewan
as does taxes, corporate taxes, and other benefits that do accrue from economic development in a certain jurisdiction. Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member pointed out, there was an agreement, and the other three parties to the agreement will be covering the cost overruns for an interim period. That is Husky, the federal government, and the province of Alberta. At this particular time, the interim funding amounts to $37 million. We will be covering Saskatchewan's delinquent amount, Mr. Speaker, and in the meantime, there is ongoing discussions, as we speak for that matter, where there are officials trying to determine a way to deal with this. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, this project should be completed. It's about 90% complete, and that's the key, to get some cash flow from this plant so that there is some real value, both in cash and economic and social value in the communities it affects.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. Well, in the event that an agreement cannot be found with Saskatchewan, the original understanding of an agreement says that feedstock will be 50% from Saskatchewan, 50% from Alberta. And I was wondering if the fairest way to go, in view of no more dollars from Saskatchewan, would be 25% from Saskatchewan, 75% from Alberta.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I noticed that the New Democrats are siding with the province of Saskatchewan, and I noticed the member for Calgary Mountain View suggesting that all we're doing is spending, spending, spending. Mr. Speaker, there was an agreement in place, as the member for Lloydminster points out. There was a deal, and we expect governments, whether they change in terms of which party's in power, that they live up to those agreements, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think that the honourable member brings forward a point that is worthy of consideration. I should say that there are a number of options. The first and foremost at this particular time is that with cost overruns, that all dollars that go in, last dollars in are the first ones out. Whether or not there is a prime plus a certain interest penalty associated with those dollars assessed against the interest of Saskatchewan, whether or not there's a new class of funding to deal with this particular shortfall, all of those issues are being examined, Mr. Speaker, and I expect to have, as a matter of fact, in this afternoon after question period, have a briefing from my officials who have been in contact with the federal government. As I said, Mr. Speaker, the first priority is to get the economic benefit. This is why the project was agreed to create jobs and economic stimulus. That should be the priority.
Edmonton Calder, followed by Calgary Northwest.
Mr. Speaker, my questions are to the Minister of Family and Social Services. Presently, families with children on social assistance are allowed to keep their family allowance and child tax credits from the federal government to which they are entitled. On April 7th, Mr. Speaker, this minister was asked in this assembly to make a commitment that such benefits would not be deducted from people on social assistance, and he said that they would not. Given, a few weeks later, this minister is saying now that he is evaluating whether or not to pass on these child benefits, I'd like to ask the minister, how can Albertans trust him when he flip-flops on an issue that is so important to so many families?
Mr. Speaker, our position hasn't changed on the current child tax credit and the family allowance. It was committed that we would pass it through, and we're doing just that, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I'm really pleased to hear that, but the public is a bit confused, and I would ask the minister if he is stating unequivocally that child benefits will be passed on to those families, will he indicate in writing to clients and to workers so that there's no misunderstanding in terms of that benefit? Good idea.
Mr. Speaker, now the member is talking about child tax benefits, and I assume she's referring to the proposed changes that the federal government have announced that will be implemented at the beginning of January. And I can say, Mr. Speaker, that it was an item of discussion with all of my counterparts from across Canada at a recent ministerial meeting, and not one minister has made a determinant at this point in terms of what they will be doing with that. We're working together to see what would be most appropriate. I'll continue to dialogue with our own provincial treasurer and Federal Intergovernmental Affairs Minister, Mr. Speaker. And sometime between now and January, we will make the appropriate decision and the appropriate announcement.
Quest.
Mr. Speaker, the Western Heritage Centre site in Cochrane is fenced off, and there are neither workers nor construction materials at the site.
The understanding I've obtained is that the project has been halted due to lack of funds, despite the minister's optimistic claims to the contrary. My first question to the minister is simply this: why would you allow the project even to begin when it's now abundantly clear they don't have the money to finish the job?
Mr. Speaker, the Western Heritage Center is a private initiative brought forward to government a number of years ago on the basis that if we raise some money, will you match it? The answer to that question was yes, and the number is $5 million. The Western Heritage Center proponents have raised through pledges and committed dollars $5 million, and we have agreed to match that. The money is flowing from government. It's lottery money, I should point out. The money is flowing from government on an invoice, 50 cents for each dollar spent basis. Mr. Speaker, we've advanced sums of money, something less than half of our commitment so far. The Western Heritage Center proponents are continuing to raise funds and to gather in the obligations and the pledges that have been met. They have money in the bank, but being prudent business people, they're not going to spend money they don't have. The project is moving along. There has been work done. When I last visited the site several weeks ago, between then and today, there's been a tremendous amount of work being done. I expect that when the Western Heritage Center people have their next load of money in place and they can let the next contract, they will do so.
Well, Mr. Speaker, since in fact the project is halted and not moving along, I'm wondering what the cabinet minister, what the minister plans to do with this $3.5 million basement that's sitting in the middle of a provincial park. Is it going to be the next bunker for the Conservative cabinet ministers in the next election campaign?
You don't have to answer that. Just sit down.
I resist the urge, Mr. Speaker, to call that a stupid question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
But, Mr. Speaker, let me say this. The proponents of the Western Heritage Center brought their idea to government. The government examined it, agreed to meet them on a 50-50 basis. We've agreed to do that. Our obligation is there. The proponents of the Western Heritage Center want a Western Heritage Center on the site of the Cochrane Ranch. They're continuing to fundraise. They have a plan. They have contracts let. They have significant funds in the bank. And when the next load of money comes in and they can do the next stage of work, they will do that. But it makes no sense to go ahead and spend money they don't have. The project may take longer than was originally envisaged because of the downturn in the economy. It may take a little longer to raise the funds because some of the donors are experiencing financial difficulty due to problems in the oil patch, and the honourable member from Calgary knows full well that there's been a slight dip in activity in Calgary. And for that reason, it may take a little longer than we all expected. But my impression and my conviction and my expectation remains the same today as it did when the project was first announced. There will be a Western Heritage Center on the site of the Cochrane Ranch, but the timing may not coincide with that first envisaged.
Slave Lake, followed by Edmonton Jasper Place. Order, please.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Health. There has been some discussion about air ambulance services in the province and contractual agreements under which it is provided. These ambulance services are so important to my constituents, particularly in remote northern communities where many lives have been saved by these services. Naturally, my constituents are very concerned about the possibilities of contracts being fiddled with. Could the Minister please advise the House whether she is contemplating renegotiating the contracts currently in place with STARS ambulance service for out of Edmonton and Calgary?
Mr. Speaker, I have no intention of renegotiating contracts that we've negotiated with the Shock Trauma Air Rescue Society of Alberta. Last year we issued requests for proposals and publicly tendered and awarded contracts for service, including that to STARS. The STARS group have notified us that they have some concerns with the existing contract. We are committed in Alberta Health to the terms and conditions of the present contract, and should the terms change or should changes be considered necessary, and certainly I would discuss that with the Provincial Advisory Committee on Trauma, then I would make the choice of retendering the contract. That's simply the way that we do business in Alberta Health.
Mr. Speaker, could the Minister please advise the House that in the event that STARS withdraws from providing air ambulance service under terms of their contracts, will this put air ambulance services out of Edmonton, Calgary in jeopardy, and how will that affect the other areas?
Mr. Speaker, I can assure the honourable member that because of the concern that has been expressed by STARS, we have a contingency plan in place which would ensure that there was utilization of the approved carriers already approved by the contract, and certainly would not allow health service access to be jeopardized because of the delay and the possible retendering of the contract.
The place followed by Edmonton Highlands.
Mr. Speaker, in response to the Danzig report on forest management in Alberta, the minister tabled a document which said in future meaningful opportunities will be provided to the public to have input into all major policies and major allocation decisions that affect Alberta forests. Well, my question is about a major allocation decision affecting Sunpine Forest Products Limited in an area in the Brazeau Timber Development Area west of Rocky Mountain House. The opportunities for public input have been so slim that a group of local people, assisted by other Albertans, have gone so far as to initiate their own studies into wildlife issues, into tourism, and the like. I wonder if the Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife will tell us whether he will bridge the gap between his rhetoric and reality by referring this important allocation decision to the Natural Resources Conservation Board for a full public review.
Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, the negotiations and approvals for the Sunpine project have been a long and difficult time. There has been necessary changes have been made by the proponents with respect to the project because of environmental concerns that were raised. Mr. Speaker, at this point, there has certainly been a lot of public involvement and consultation.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it may have been long and difficult, but it's been in secret, and that's the whole point. And I would like, since Sunpine has scaled back their proposals to the point where many people in Rocky Mountain House now suspect the real agenda is that Sunpine wants the timber from the FMA to feed its mill at Carolyn, if he will, in other words, the Rocky Mountain House is expendable, if he will now, and this is what they went through before with Weyerhaeuser up to Drayton Valley, the local timber goes up there, it's what's happening to Piers as well. If he will state in this assembly today that never again will he agree to take Rocky Mountain House timber to feed another project in another part of the province.
Mr. Speaker, to coin a word that was used, a fresh word, I suppose, in the Assembly a couple of years ago, it's the word insinuendo. The basis on which the honourable member bases his questions is full of insinuation and innuendo, and based on no fact, just rumor. Mr. Speaker, the Sunpine proposal is coming along just fine and will be reported in due course.
The Highlands, followed by Edmonton Whitemud.
Mr. Speaker, last week the residents of the inner city learned that the George Spady Centre is going to be cutting for 2 months its daytime detoxification program. When I raised the matter, Mr. Speaker, the response I got from the government was, well, you know, it's better that they shut down for 2 months in the summer than, and let these people wander the streets, than shut for 2 months in the winter and let them freeze. Mr. Speaker, there's another agency in my riding that's also facing some troublesome times right now, and that's the Single Men's Hostel. A couple of months ago, the government said it was going to let the infirmary shut down. I questioned them. They said, okay, we'll change our mind. We'll keep the infirmary going. Now, the staff are being told, the provincially employed staff are being told that they're going to be placed in other jobs. My question to the Minister of Health or the Minister of Social Services is this. Why won't those ministers involve the staff at the hostel in the decision-making process so they can know whether or not the infirmary is going to survive?
Mr. Speaker, I gave the honourable member the assurance last month, and I'll repeat it today, that the nursing services provided at the Single Men's Hostel will continue in some form. What form that will take, I can't give her exactly at this point. We are working towards the July 1 deadline, but certainly we recognize the importance of the health services provided in the hostel, and we are working to ensure that those continue.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the people with the not-for-profit organization that are going to be running the hostel, the Hope Mission, haven't been contacted about this, and yet the nursing staff are being told that they're going to be forced to go into jobs elsewhere. When will the minister commit, A, to getting a hold of the Hope Commission to consult with them and plan with them, and B, provide the funding for the nursing care that the infirmary will need?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure who's informing the people that are informing the member for Edmonton Highlands, but I will certainly look into the matter and provide her with the most current update that I can, recognizing that the deadline we've all set for ourselves is July the 1st.
Whiteman. Speaker, the Department of Transportation is now engaging in the practice of hiring students with a 2-week crash course to carry out safety and mechanical inspections on tractor trailers. To the minister responsible for transportation, will the minister explain how he can condone this training to be sufficient to inspect these vehicles?
Mr. Speaker, 2 things that I might point out. It's transportation and utilities, not transportation. But also the fact that you were the guy that said it was not going to get the Yellowhead opened in 1991.
Don't listen to him, Boo.
Mr. Speaker, that's exactly right. Mr. Speaker, 2 things. Going back to the inspection of vehicles, we announced in 1992, January the 1 of this year, that we were going into commercial vehicle inspection. I would have to check to make sure that the statement that you made relative to hiring students to do specifically that is occurring. What generally occurs is the inspection place, the private inspection place, the garage in Manning, and that heavy-duty mechanic in that garage can get licensed to do the job. Not the government, but we will license that person in the private sector to do the job, and we'll do that in Edmonton, and we'll do it in Rimbey and Lloydminster and every area that applies for the right to have heavy-duty mechanics do that inspection, because that is basically the way the rules are.
Mr. Speaker, my supplementary again to the minister. Assuming that my information is correct, and it normally is correct,
Walsky, you're already falling all over yours. Okay.
would the minister, Mr. Speaker, would the minister advise this House as to who he would intend to hold liable if one of these vehicles was passed for inspection, certified properly, and was involved in a repeat of the situation such as we saw in Kamloops?
Well, Mr. Speaker, 2 things. The only thing that he's had right, usually right, is Mr. Speaker, just that term itself. And secondarily, what I said in my answer in the first place to the honourable member was, number 1, the heavy-duty mechanics, heavy-duty mechanics, are out of the private sector. The private sector. We do the classroom instruction with those heavy-duty mechanics. And they then are licensed by us to, in fact, provide that service of inspections of both buses and trucks.
Mr. Yellowhead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The coal mine disaster in Nova Scotia has shown that coal mines remain to this day a very dangerous workplace. Hazards are not limited to the explosion or cave-ins, however. Respiratory diseases such as pneumoconiosis pose a longer-term and more insidious risk to the health of coal miners. As Alberta is now in the process of reviewing our mine safety regulations, the government has an excellent opportunity to reduce the health risk associated with coal mining. Will the Minister of Occupational Health and Safety tell the Assembly whether the province's 6,000 mine workers can expect a new preventative environmental standard for the monitoring dust levels at the work site to replace Alberta's current medical standard, which discovers respiratory problems only after it is too late to do anything about them?
Mr. Speaker, just a few days ago I answered a question similar to that in Hansard, and yes, as soon as the mine workers and the employers get their regulations, proposals to me, we'll work as quickly as we can on them.
Mr. Speaker, in 1981, a government study entitled Respiratory Disorders Associated with Coal Mining, Implications for Occupational Health, recommended the adoption of an environmental standard for dust levels at coal mines. It is now 11 years later, and we still have no changes. I wonder if the minister, if the refusal to implement an environmental standard is not simply due to the government's callous disregard for the lives of these Albertans, will the minister at least implement rules requiring mandatory retirement of coal miners with a full pension after 15 years, as is done in Europe, so their long-term exposure to coal and rock dust and therefore the risk of associated diseases may be limited?
Mr. Speaker, the comments from the honourable member suggesting that we're not prepared to work is just garbage, if I can put it that way. I'm waiting. Mr. Speaker, it's been some 3 years that I've asked the mine workers and the employers to put the regulations together and get them to me. They haven't done it yet, and I'm waiting for them. If you can help us get those moved on quicker, then we will move quicker by bringing them into legislation.
Westlock Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This come about. Today I'd like to direct my question to the Solicitor General. The Solicitor General's office has negotiated a number of contracts with the federal government on policing in Alberta, but there's one clause in the contract, Mr. Speaker, that says that if the police are not happy, the RCMP, with the contract, they can give a 3-year notice and go ahead then and build accommodations and facilities, charge the MD. Appears to be a loophole in the contract. My question to the Solicitor General is, what is the Solicitor General going to do to close this loophole, for instance, in the case of Drumheller, who could be faced with $2 million cost to the municipality?
Mr. Speaker, I am not aware of any problem with the RCMP contract. We just signed a 20-year contract for 61 municipalities, and I haven't had any representation to date from any municipality in the province, but I will, if the honourable member could bring forth specifics or have those communities get in touch with me, I would certainly be willing to communicate with the federal government and with the other departments involved in this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It would be most appreciated, because when they go to the federal Solicitor General, they tell them to see the provincial Solicitor General, and then I've been informed when they went to your office, they've been told to see the federal. In other words, the old Tory ring around the rosy. And so now, without having the minister's promise that he will look into the thing, that's good enough for me. Thank you.
Oh, that's harmless. Orders of the day.
Written questions.